This is the brand new 2019 iPad mini, and this is the 2018 $329 iPad, and today we're comparing these bad boys. We'll be taking a look at the size, screen quality, performance, gaming, Apple Pencil use, and much more. The 2018 standard iPad has been extremely popular thanks to its relatively fast processor, Apple Pencil support, and especially its $329 price. Now that we have this powerhouse with updated specs for only $70 more, I would say it's a no-brainer if you don't mind the size. But here's the dilemma. You can get the 2018 iPad for $150 cheaper thanks to it consistently being on sale for $250. We'll leave some links in the video description. If you're just reading the spec sheet online and you're looking at the 9.7 inch versus the 8 inch, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But here clearly you can see that the iPad mini is much smaller, and honestly I was quite surprised when I unboxed this morning. Along with that, there is quite a difference in weight and just the size and feel in the hand. You can see that I'm comfortably holding this in my hand. It would be very easy to be watching something, reading a book, and you kind of just won't get tired of holding this in your hand. It feels really nice. Whereas the iPad has much more bulk and weight, and I can see you definitely getting tired and wanting to hold it with both hands. The iPad mini is also thinner, both in its case and the bezels, which is more pleasing to look at. So now let's compare the actual displays. The resolution is exactly the same, but since the iPad mini is smaller, all those pixels are crammed into a smaller display, making it look sharper or more detailed. Now it's not a huge difference, but it definitely is noticeable. I have Apple's website open up here, especially if you're somebody that likes nice, sharp, and high resolution displays. Now you may have noticed that the iPad mini screen is warmer than the standard iPads, and that's because it has True Tone, which personally I wasn't that big of a fan of when it came out, but it has really grown on me. I'll go ahead and shut that off just for consistency. The mini also supports wide color, so it's more color accurate. Now let's compare the maximum brightness of both of these. We have auto brightness shut off, and taking a look at these side by side, I don't know, maybe the mini's slightly brighter, but let's let the camera decide since it's more accurate. What's interesting is that the iPad mini has more brightness shift, so if you're looking at it from an off angle, it gets much dimmer than the standard iPad, which keeps its brightness. Another difference is reflectivity. Now this is hard to show off in camera, but the 2018 iPad is much more reflective, and if I just look at myself like this, it looks like a mirror, whereas the 2019 iPad mini looks kind of matted out and gray, even though it is a glossy screen, so you're gonna have less reflection problems. Now the main reason for that is the fact that this does not have a laminated display and this one does. This means that there's an actual gap between the glass and the actual LCD display, and this might be the biggest difference that you notice day to day, and that's a reason why a lot of people didn't buy this model of the iPad. With the iPad mini, the glass is actually laminated or glued to the LCD display. This leads to many differences like better contrast, deeper blacks, a more solid feeling without a kind of a thumping sound when you're touching the display, and the gap is actually quite noticeable, especially if you're looking at an angle, and that means that the experience of using an Apple Pencil is much better with the iPad mini. If you're using the 2018 iPad with the Apple Pencil, sometimes the tip of the pencil will actually be off from where you're drawing. So now let's get into performance. The iPad mini 4 has the same CPU and graphics as the $1,000 iPhone XS, whereas the 2018 iPad has the same processor as the iPhone 7. They're both rated for 10 hours of battery life, but the neural engine inside the A12 will help apps created with Core ML2 launch faster, run faster, and use much less power, so you'll most likely use less battery life on the mini compared to the iPad. The new iPad mini also has 3 gigs of RAM instead of 2 with the standard 2018 iPad, and running Geekbench 4, we actually get close to 40% faster score in single core and almost 70% faster score in multi-core. As far as graphics, we get just over 50% higher Metal score with the iPad mini, but this is looking at a lot of different compute tasks, so let's run Antutu. We have a score that's over 75% faster with the iPad mini, but that's an overall score. If we take a look at just the GPU score, it's actually just about 2.5 times faster. That is incredible. So that's gonna show you your real world kind of gaming performance. Let's take a look at that with Asphalt 9. So the colors and the contrast looks great. The brightness, I'm not seeing any performance dips, and I probably shouldn't since it has an A12 processor. Everything's fluid and everything seems nice, and what's really standing out to me is how nice it is to use the iPad mini as far as size and weight. It's very comfortable in the hand, and the screen definitely is large enough to play games. It's a lot nicer than using my iPhone. One thing that I do wish is that we had stereo speakers instead of just hearing the sound from the bottom of the iPad. So now the standard iPad. Yes, the screen is bigger, so you kind of get a fuller field of view, but I feel like since it's so close to my actual face, it doesn't help me that much. If I was playing a different game where I'd have to look at more area, it'd kind of be hard since I'm holding it so close. One thing that I can tell though is it's much heavier, and it's harder to hold in the hands because of that. If you're gonna do extended gaming sessions, say 20-30 minutes, I think you will start getting tired holding it in your hands. Now, as far as the smoothness, I don't wanna say it's not as smooth because I don't know if I could tell that for sure, but what I definitely can notice is that there's a lot more aliasing all over in the background on the actual vehicles, and maybe the graphics is worse overall, or maybe it's just all that aliasing that it's not removing like it is with the smaller iPad. The other thing that really stands out to me is the reflectivity. I definitely see it in the blacks, reflections from what's in the background in my face. Comparing these side by side, I could definitely tell that the iPad mini is smoother, and we looked it up and it actually runs at 60 FPS on the mini and it runs at 30 here. The graphics look a little bit better and the aliasing is definitely much better, and if I had to choose between one of these for gaming, it would definitely be the iPad mini. I have both iPads side by side, the same distance from me, and now let's do a speaker test. Let's start out with the original iPad. You guys let me know down in the comments which one you think sounds better. All right, so I am personally surprised. I thought the larger iPad would maybe be louder or fuller, but it's actually the opposite. I think the iPad mini just has newer speakers or maybe a better design or something like that. It does sound a bit louder to me, but along with that, just the actual sound quality of the speakers do sound better. The bass, the mids, and especially the clarity and the highs. It definitely sounds better, so that's a win for the iPad mini. As far as the cameras, the ones on the back are exactly the same, but the selfie cameras aren't. We have a 1.2 megapixel on the larger standard iPad and a 7 megapixel on the iPad mini. Just looking at them side by side, I could definitely tell a difference. Let me take a selfie for you guys. You let me know what you think in the comments. And as far as selfie video, the 2018 iPad just records 720p compared to 1080p with the new iPad mini. Before I give you guys my recommendations, I want to list a few more spec differences. The new iPad mini has Bluetooth 5 and also simultaneous dual band Wi-Fi, which means you'll get a faster and more reliable Wi-Fi connection. And if you're going to get the LTE model, you'll have gigabit class LTE, which will be faster on the iPad mini. If you like the size and don't mind spending more money, especially if you want to use an Apple Pencil, buy the mini. The display is great and the CPU and graphics are the same as the $1,000 iPhone XS. You can't find a small tablet this good anywhere, so we would highly recommend it. Now, if price does matter to you, and you can find the 2018 iPad for $250, which will leave a few links to different sites that often have sales in the video description below, this iPad is a steal, especially if you like the larger size. If you're not doing very intensive tasks like gaming, we think that most people will be happy with it. This has been Max with Max Tech. Click right here if you want to subscribe and see our full comparison between all of the iPads that Apple offers right now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.